Moria woke up to a biting chill in her small cottage. She shivered as she opened her eyes, only to see that the window by her bed had been left open all night. Cold air streamed in, making the cottage feel like a frost-bitten cave. Daniel Thorne, her ever-lazy black cat, had propped the window open in the middle of the night to cool himself off. Now he was curled up snugly by the hearth, fast asleep, oblivious to the cold. With a growl, Moria flung her blankets aside and stormed over to the hearth. "Daniel Thorne," she bellowed, her voice echoing through the small room. "You left the window open. I'm freezing." Daniel Thorne opened one eye lazily, unbothered by her outburst. "I was hot," he replied. "It's not my fault your frailness can't handle a little fresh air." Moria's face flushed with anger, her voice rising with each word. "I'm sick because of you. My throat is sore. I can't stop coughing and hacking, and now I have to spend half the morning brewing my special tea just to feel better." Daniel Thorne yawned, unimpressed. "Well, maybe next time you should try sleeping with a blanket. You know this cottage gets cold at night." Moria huffed and turned away from him, coughing as she began preparing her herbal tea. The day had already started on the wrong foot, and she knew she needed to recover quickly if she was going to pull off her plan this year. The Chicken Town Market was going to be spectacular for her this year, and the 4th annual pumpkin carving contest was fast approaching, and she was determined to win at all costs. She couldn't bear the thought of Clevor outshining her again. Not after last year's disaster with the giant pumpkin that no one wanted. This year had to be different. She needed a way to ensure victory, and she wasn't above using magic or cheating to make it happen. As she sipped her tea, Moria's mind raced with ideas. If she couldn't win fairly, then she would simply have to cheat. It was the only way to finally show Clevor that she was a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, Clevor was busy preparing for the annual pumpkin carving contest. His crop was plentiful this year, and he had harvested an array of pumpkins in all shapes, sizes, and colors: green, orange, yellow, and white. His selection was as diverse as it was beautiful, and he knew the villagers would love it. Clevor's charm wasn't just in his magic, though that certainly played a part. It was his understanding of what the villagers wanted that made him successful year after year. They didn't just want pumpkins, they wanted variety, creativity, and a bit of fun. And Clevor delivered that in spades with good customer service. He smiled as he, Daleth, and Mudusa arranged the pumpkins in neat rows at the market, watching as the villagers began to gather, admiring his colorful display. The crowd buzzed with excitement as they chatted about the upcoming contest, already guessing which pumpkins they would buy to carve. Clevor felt confident. He knew his pumpkins would be a hit, and his reputation had only grown since last year. The villagers trusted him, and that trust made his pumpkins fly off the shelves. But he didn't know that, across the market square, Moria was already scheming. As Moria arrived at the market, her mind was swirling with plans for how she would cheat her way to victory. She had spent the past few nights concocting a special brew. This time, not for her pumpkins, but for the carving contest itself. Her potion was subtle and powerful. It was designed to enchant the pumpkins, making them harder to carve for anyone who wasn't her. The moment someone tried to cut into the skin of one of Clevor's pumpkins, it would become nearly impossible to pierce. Only Moria's pumpkins would carve easily, giving her the upper hand with hopes of selling out. Moria smirked to herself as she set up in an empty corner. This year, she would win not because her pumpkins were better, but because she had rigged the game in her favor. She glanced over at Clevor's treasure stall, where villagers were already flocking to admire his variety of pumpkins. He seemed so confident, so sure of himself, but he had no idea what was coming. Daniel Thorne, perched lazily on her counter, glanced up at Moria. "So what's the grand plan this year?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Moria's smirk widened. "Oh, nothing too complicated. Just a little magic to make sure no one but me can carve a decent pumpkin. Clevor won't know what hit his contest." Daniel Thorne raised an eyebrow. "You really think that's going to work?" "It has to," Moria replied. "I'm not losing to him again." When the time for the pumpkin carving contest finally arrived, The market square was packed with eager villagers, all holding their pumpkins and preparing their carving knives. Clevor perched proudly at his stall, watching with satisfaction as the villagers admired his pumpkins, eager to see what creations they would come up with. But as the contest began, something strange started to happen. One by one, the villagers who had purchased Clevor's pumpkins found themselves struggling. No matter how hard they pressed their knives, they couldn't seem to make a dent in the pumpkin skin. Frustration grew as more and more people tried, only to find that their pumpkins were not able to be carved. "What's going on?" one villager muttered, staring at their unblemished pumpkin. "These pumpkins are too tough." Clevor, noticing the commotion, frowned in confusion. His pumpkins had never been difficult to carve before. He tried cutting into one himself with his crippled claw, only to find that the claw wouldn't go through. Something was definitely wrong. Meanwhile, Moria stood off to the side, her smirk widening as she watched the chaos unfold. Her plan was working perfectly. "Pumpkins, get your pumpkins," she called. The villagers would turn to her pumpkins, and she would claim victory. But before she could revel in her success, something unexpected happened. A small child, struggling with one of Clevor's pumpkins, suddenly burst into laughter. "It's okay," the child shouted. "I'll just paint mine instead." The child's laughter was contagious, and soon other villagers began to follow suit. Instead of carving the pumpkins, they started decorating them with paints, markers, and other creative tools. What had started as a disaster turned into a new trend in Clevor's favor, while saving the competition, and soon the entire market square was filled with painted pumpkins, each one unique and colorful. Clevor, realizing what was happening, quickly adapted. "Great idea," he called out, encouraging the villagers to embrace the new method. His charm and quick thinking had turned the situation around once again. Moria's smirk faded as she watched the villagers flock back to Clevor's stall, eager to buy more pumpkins to paint. Her enchanted pumpkins sat untouched, and once again, Clevor had won the villagers' hearts not through magic, but through his understanding of what they truly wanted. The finalists got in line and Clevor landed on the winner. A stunning white pumpkin was selected and the art on the pumpkin was a silhouette of a raven. Moria looked up and the lazy Daniel Thorne was dripping in different colors of paint. "You fool," she said. "I was walking by and a child spilled her paints on me," he said. "Liar," she uttered. "I saw you over there trying to be Picasso." "Oh well," he said. "It's not like I'm the only artist here." "Why you looking at me?" she asked. "Because you are an artist, Moria, a not-so-good con artist." He laughed as he walked away. As the contest came to a close, Moria stood fuming by her empty corner, her plan ruined. Daniel Thorne, ever the voice of sarcasm, continues to walk away. "Looks like your plan backfired again," he said, as he continued walking. "Maybe next year you should try brushing up on your art skills." Moria glared at him, her hands clenched into fists. "Next year," she muttered through gritted teeth. "Next year I will win." But deep down, Moria knew that as long as Clevor was around, winning wouldn't be easy no matter how many schemes she concocted. She went home and paced like before, thinking of what could be done. Maybe the change of seasons would help her clear her mind. A cluttered mind isn't healthy and troubled minds need to rest. She would refresh herself and come back with a grandeur scheme or buy a new book of spells for an endless search beyond measures. But for now, all the villagers knew in their hearts that they could trust in Clevor's treasures.